Have you ever wondered about the importance of voice exercises and breath work when it comes to your public speaking and communication skills? I don't know about you, but I haven't necessarily thought about it a lot. But today we have Robert David on the podcast. He is dedicated conversation trainer and builder of the VTW or voice training workout method, known for his positive spirit and skill in fostering meaningful connections. Drawing on over 8 years of entrepreneurship and overcoming personal challenges, Robert David has developed an insightful approach to communication that combines voice exercises, breath work, conversation, and movement. His VTW method supports micro business owners and entrepreneurs to articulate their feelings honestly and connect deeply with their personal and professional relationships. And I'm excited to have Robert David on because he has been like a breath of fresh air for me. No pun intended there with breath work, but definitely some really cool stuff that he brings up, and always a positive light every time that we have conversations, even though it's only been like 2 or 3 times. So definitely awesome to have him on here. So Robert David, tell us a little bit more about yourself before we dive into the podcast.
Yeah, well, first, I appreciate Philip for having me on the podcast. Super pumped. And I'm a guy that sometimes by accident will put a blender in the fridge. So there's moments for me where I'm not always present. And I think when it comes to speaking and my journey in speaking, that's been a big focal point, is like being able to take a moment to pause, to breathe, and to be able to just be you. And growing up, I felt very scared and nervous to be me and to express myself in conversations with groups of people, being able to just ask strangers like how their day has been, or if I'm going to a store asking for help. And throughout this process or this journey, it's been getting more comfortable being able to express who I am out into the world. And that's involved a wide range of entrepreneurship journey of 8 years. With that, a wide range of trying different things, if it's DJing to meditation instructor to marketing, for social media to conference organizing, to then helping when it comes to those that want to go and step up on stage and communicate and improve those skills of how we have conversations with each other. It's been a wild journey. And so I'm definitely grateful for speaking, being a part of all of that, and getting more and more comfortable being able to speak with others. And it's still always a work in progress. And I always believe in the importance too of giving yourself some grace, honoring the feelings that come up, and also creating some fun in the journey too of life.
Love it. A lot of things to unpack there. Before we do that, I want to go into my first question I always like to ask. And that is, what is your definition of public speaking?
Yeah, so I talked about this before, which is awesome that you're bringing up this question, because for me it's like breaking it down into both those words. So public, which is like how it can be defined as like done, perceived, or being able to exist in open view. And then with speaking, that part is the action of conveying information or expressing one's thoughts and feelings. And so for me, there's no area in either one of those that says you have to speak in front of 1,000 people for it to be public speaking, tens of thousands of people, or 100. Really, how I think about it is being able to speak with one other person and vocalizing the thoughts and feelings you have outwardly through the words that you're expressing, or even your body as well. That can be a form of speaking. And that for me is how I define it. And people get so hung up on that of like, oh, I'm not great at public speaking. Well, I'm like, have you had conversations with people? And do you have friends? Do people enjoy talking to you? And they're like, oh yeah, like, yes. So it's like you are great. And I am a believer of that you are born a great communicator. It's just sometimes along the way you may have lost that, and being able to reconnect with that is so important.
Yeah, and really communication comes down to good habits. I like that you frame it that way, because most of us do think that, oh, I'm a bad communicator. No, you've picked up bad habits along your life's journey, and that's what's made you into this bad communicator. But when you really want something, you know how to communicate about it. When something is on your mind, you're dead set about that, you are not going to stop until you get that thing. It's we know how to communicate when we really want something. It's when we have to navigate through these conversations or when our emotions go high that all of these thoughts and this logic that goes behind the way we should communicate and navigate a conversation just go out the window. So I
Yeah.
love that you bring that up that way.
When one to add into that is when we're trying to think of the next thing we're going to say without actually listening. It starts with listening and the importance of
Mm.
that, to be able to hear what the other person is saying. So then you can take that moment to realize how, like, from those words that this person is saying, what do I feel right now? And what are the thoughts coming in to then be able to express that? And comfort is, of course, a big part of that. And from comfort is safety, feeling safe within yourself, safe in the conversation, safe in the experience that is happening right now for speaking. It's so important to be able to create that within each one of us that's want to go out there and speak to others.
Yeah. And especially when you're in a difficult conversation, you have to create that safety within that. If you're like a high stress situation or whatever that looks like for you, or you have to go in and you're really going through the conversation, have to fire somebody, perhaps, whatever these high stress situations may be, you can't just go in there and have an emotion that doesn't align with that. Like if you're going to go in and fire somebody, you wouldn't look super happy, positive, gung ho, like, come on, buddy. Yeah, we're about to go grab some beers or something. Like you're going to go into it having empathy for them. You're going to feel some remorse for them. And if you don't, it's a little strange, unless if you just happen to be the person that has to go in there and you have no clue why. You're just like, hey, here's your papers. That's a little different. But you definitely need to have those emotions and try and be there in the moment with those people, which goes back to your blender in the fridge, which you mentioned earlier, because you're not in the moment. Your head is somewhere completely different. And so it's really important to actually listen in. And I'm sure you've had plenty of conversations, and I'd love to hear maybe a funny one where either you were the on the receiving end of that, or maybe you did that yourself, where you weren't really present in the moment and the way you answered it, and then how the conversation came out because the other person maybe realized or you realized that they weren't paying attention.
Yeah. So my favorite, I feel like people can relate to this one a lot, is when you're going out and eating at a restaurant and the server. So I had a moment for me where I went to a restaurant and I ordered food. I was like, all right, I'm like digging like this one I'm going to take. I say what I want to the server. Server goes, and I'm like waiting there. I'm not really present. Like I can just feel I'm like out of sorts. Like I'm trying. I'm in front with someone that I'm talking to, and I'm struggling to like be present because I don't even remember exactly what was being said, but I just know it was an important conversation of what my mind was creating in this moment. And I remembered then the food coming back out and the server putting the food like on the table, and then the server goes, I hope you enjoy your meal. And then I say, I hope you enjoy it too. It's like, and I know I'm not the only one that's happened. And I was in hospitality, so that's where it comes. That's why it comes up. Like it's
Yeah.
auto comments, because it's like, okay, food just dropped. I had to do that. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I hope you enjoy it too. And it's just those moments where we're not present. So for me, that was like a big one that comes up always.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's so tough. I mean, a lot of times it's just a natural reaction that you're gonna say, "Oh yeah, you too," and then you realize after it's like, "Wait a second, they're not getting food." So yeah, you were kind of there, but you're almost you were just waiting to be able to respond, which goes back to what you said earlier. You're not truly listening. You're listening in order to respond rather than listening to what they said and then responding appropriately, which that's such a great point there that I know we're all guilty of that or we've done that before. And that's obviously a situation where it's not a big deal. I'm sure, as you said, you're in hospitality. It happened all the time, I'm sure. And so they're just used to it. They just whatever. They just ignore it like no big deal. Just move on. But think about in relationships or in business if we do that. And here and there, it might not be a big deal. People understand sometimes we're stressed out. There's things going on. But if you're doing that all the time, just how detrimental that could be.
Well, and that, and also to not to beat yourself up. So I'm one to do that. Like I'm one to be like, oh my gosh, it's messed up. Like I feel embarrassed. I want to close off from the world. I want to go into like a little corner and feel like a hermit for like a few hours. And really, if we can laugh about it in those moments, like that one, yeah, I laughed when that happened to me. And if we can have that moment of just like, I'm not perfect, I'm human, that then ultimately creates a deeper level of connection where we can then learn, of course, from the mistake and improve and make sure that we're getting better at being present. However, if we don't take a moment to acknowledge that, hey, I'm human, you're human, we're able to connect on that level rather than me being some perfect person, it just creates such a deeper level of comfort in that moment, which is really awesome and cool to witness and be a part of. And then it just makes it much more enjoyable for an experience.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And when you feel connected with that person that you're speaking with, you just feel better when you leave that conversation. Your mood's elevated, you feel good, you feel like they actually care about you and everything. And so that's really a very good way to be when you are with other people, not just so that they feel better, but that should be part of it too. Cause you don't want people leaving you and being like, man, that Robert David guy, man, that Philip guy, like, just can't stand being around them. They don't pay attention to me. They're just focused on themselves. And I feel like crap afterwards because it's like I wanted to talk about me a little bit, maybe get something off my chest. And I just felt like they weren't even there for me. They didn't even care about me. But if you can have somebody leave like, oh man, Robert David is just the best. Like he just listens to me. I'll just go on and on and on, and he'll ask questions and get to know more of what's going on. And I really feel like I can get everything out with him. And I just feel great when I get done talking with him because you paid attention. So it's such an important thing. But I want us to go into this. You've been talking about being present and in the moment. And I feel like some of this breath work may be something that helps out with that. But tell us a little bit more about how we can be present in that moment. Because I can see, and I know in my relationships, my wife gets on to me because hey, here I am on my phone a lot. Like, okay, let me get on social media, try to do some business there and texting rather than spending time with the family, even if sometimes that's just watching TV. But I'm not always present in that moment. So I'm guilty of that. So, what are some things that we can do? And I'm asking this selfishly, but what are some things that we can do to help us be more present in the moment?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So providing context for it, that could be, as you said, like if it's with a partner at the house. One key thing is breathing is when it comes to breath work is so important. So just taking one deep breath in the if something is if you have a charge of energy which is ultimately resulting then into a feeling that's going to be created, you have a lot going on with that, and we can have a natural motion reaction, go and do something, say something that we're probably going to regret, like we could regret that. And so we want to avoid that, and that could be the same for when you're speaking, if it's on stage or speaking in just one-on-one. And so if we can take a moment to pause and do a simple, it's, I call it earth breath. It's, and this was learned for me from my mentor, Zach Campa. And and that's a fancy word of just saying breathe through your nose. So just in and then out through your mouth. And just like that. And it's so simple. And people know it. Yeah, you know it. But sometimes we don't practice that in those big moments of energy that can come up. And so that can be a trigger of someone saying something that really makes us angry, to someone calling us out in an embarrassing way. And whenever you feel a energy shift in the entire body, that's a moment for you to pause and just
Hmm.
take a moment to breathe. And then from there, be able to act. And another way, if you don't have a moment, like if you're like, okay, what else besides breathing that I could do, is being able to pick something in the room that you feel is kind of cool. Like you kind of dig it. It's a cool vibe. It could be, if it's for me, like sports, like I'm a Ravens fan for NFL. So if it's like Ray Lewis there, I'm like, all right, I really like, let me take a moment just to like pause. That gives me some enjoyment. I'm pumped, and I can be present in the room. Because usually when we're not present, it's because we're thinking of something way outside of the room or outside of the moment. And so just doing a simple look around and picking something and really focusing in on it and just saying that's there. So I'm here in this moment. That can also be another helpful way to
Hmm.
get present.
Okay, and I'm just gonna kind of play devil's advocate here because I like that, and it's definitely something I want to try. But let's say we're in a room that's pretty barren. There's maybe a door or a window, or maybe not a window. Let's go with that because you could try and see something outside. But you're kind of in this closed room, no windows, you just got kind of doors, maybe a white or a brown wall, something really boring, neutral, maybe a TV, something like that that's not on. What can you do? Because to me, this is an environment that you don't have something exciting, let's say like a Ray Lewis or a sports character, if you will. So what is something you could focus on in that moment to help you come back?
Yeah, well, so pause would be key for that.
Yeah.
The pause really helps in that moment. So that could be, I'm thinking like a boardroom like situation. Let's say we're
Yeah.
heated. There's negotiations for a business deal. You're selling a business if you're a business owner, or you have an employee that you're having to navigate a difficult conversation. So you got a lot of things running in your mind. So one is of course breathing, taking a breath and a pause, and then the second two is being able to again just look at the person in the eye. So if you, there are different levels of an individual in how they learn and take in information. So you have the visual, the auditory, or the kinesthetic. So this is really helpful for the visuals. If you learn in that way, is to look at someone in the eye and be able to create some connection that way. And then if you are more auditory, it's being able to take a moment to listen to the words that the person's saying. So, all right, something's coming out of this person's mouth. Let me put my focus into what are the words that this person is saying. So really just shift it in that way. And then if you're kinesthetic, feel yourself. Like, I mean, like, you feel yourself here. So be able, if you feel more comfort in like, if it's just brushing real quick an arm, maybe you do that. Maybe it's a leg. What can be helpful is creating a part of your body that feels centered. And that's just like a place that, you feel strong in. And so that could be if you've been working out, you got like some epic biceps. You're like, all right, let me just feel this up real quick. And cool. All right, I feel strong. Right? I'm feeling strong.
You see me, I'm just be here the whole time, just feeling my arm now. Like,
yeah, right. And it's soothing. There's a natural response to soothe yourself. Like that's and it gets silly, but that's part of what I do is like being able to really expand upon that, get people comfortable in that. But like this right here, if you're just putting, for those that are watching video, or listening just on audio, I'm like putting both my hands on my biceps, arms, running them up and down. It's as if you're getting a hug from one of your parents, someone you love. It's just that moment of someone just gently moving, their arms up and down. And that can be great for those three different styles to help someone in a moment such as that, where you're not having something that you really like around, or it's not a really fun environment.
Yeah, and that's good. And I think about this just because obviously you're more of an expert on this than me, but it helps you come back into the room there and be present there, even though you're not directly focused on that person in that moment. It helps you rather than whatever million other things are going on in your mind that could be outside of that. What you got going on after this meeting, things of that nature. It helps bring you back there to that room, and then you realize, well, why do I want to pay attention to this chair or me rubbing my bicep or my breathing? I need to focus on the person that's actually here that I'm talking to, or the people that you're talking to. So yeah, that's super great way to really get back into that. And I never thought about that before.
And the key to know it's just a method to that connection again. So like this isn't like I just do this for the whole like over, and again I'm just rubbing my arms, or like you're touching the biceps, or you're staring at the person's eyes, like you're just like wide-eyed all the time. Like it's just a method real quick, a bridge, ultimately a bridge to get you back to the whole purpose of this, which is the result of being focused and staying present.
I like it. So let's dive into the VTW, or voice training workout method that you have. That I know offline you mentioned that you pulled this from a lot of different things and kind of packaged it together. So tell us a little bit about that and how that works to help you with speaking and communication.
Yeah, so the key is again, it's taking different modalities, different methods out there that have been around for thousands of years, and so that's really important. Is just being able to take all that, package it in a fun way, an activity that someone could do for just a few minutes to more like 10 to 15 minutes. And so it involves, the first part of it that involves is voice exercises. And if you've never heard what a voice exercise is, I didn't. It took me a while, but it's basically your opportunity to feel okay making weird noises out in the world. And so the way I bring it back was growing up as a kid, I would make like noises, like just weird noises. If it's motorboat sounds that you make, like people would just people would be like, all right, just do a motorboat real quick, or like doing some weird tongue sounds. And unfortunately, I can't with this mic make some of them, and they'll come through. But so like there's like a lip trill, which I'll try to do here to see if it can come through, but it's basically for the motorboat. It's like you inhale and then so what it's ultimately doing, if it doesn't come through, is the lips are moving up and down rapidly, and you're making that motorboat sound. And what's happening is, so there's lip trills, there's tongue trills, there is vowel breath, is the other one, and then also la breath, and then hum breath is the first one. And what those exercises are doing, and there's so many more voice exercises out there, but these are the ones that I particularly find very helpful and useful in my own practice, as well as sharing that with others. And what it's starting to do is from a technical standpoint, it's working the approximately over 70 muscles that we utilize when speaking. So it's being able to work some of these muscles that otherwise don't get the training. And that's interesting because the person who introduced me to this, it's through a TED Talk, is how I found it. And the story of it was my dad was like, hey, like Robert David, you might actually like this. It's really cool. What it talks about for communication and public speaking is when I was first getting started to teach others and help others. And Julian Treasures, he at the end does some of these voice exercises. And for me, that was a moment of a game changer of saying, wow, like you can be silly and goofy and kind of weird for how you're doing these sounds. And they actually have some sort of benefit. Like they actually have some sort of benefit. And to find out they've been around for thousands of years as well, which is super wild. Back in ancient Greece, they were utilized all the way till now. It's fascinating for what it can do for this feeling of like unclogging a pipe is really how it feels like, is being able to unclog a pipe for your voice and allow you to feel a lot lighter in how you're expressing the words that you're wanting to share.
Mm.
While at the same time, as a other hidden way of what it's doing is it's making you comfortable being silly and being weird and being yourself. And so that is also the hidden gift in it, is it allows you to feel that sense of safety of being able to connect to who you are and express that with others. And that's what I love about the voice exercises. So that's that first part.
Mm. That's pretty awesome. And I'll say there as well, just kind of as a side note, that seeing that guy do that on stage at a TEDx just shows that whatever you do, it doesn't matter how weird, how technically proper it is, as long as you're doing it with good intention, especially if it's a weird thing, that people are going to resonate with that. And maybe not everybody. There might have been people who are like, "Oh, that's weird. That's who cares about that stuff," and they moved on. But that got you hooked, and now look at you. You have a whole method, with that being one third of that method, which is really awesome to see. So for the audience out here, go speak whatever it is for you, whatever the weird thing that maybe is not weird to you but it could be for others. Do it anyways. Who cares? You're going to resonate with those that think it is cool.
And that's the key, is like what we think is weird is actually normal for someone else. And that's what's
Yeah.
really important to get. It's like our weirdness is our normality.
Yeah.
And that can be really hard to get sometimes, especially depending on how we've been raised and the path we've been on. But for me, it's been a struggle. And it's something recently to have worked through, of being able to showcase my full genuine energy out into the world, and like just being comfortable doing that with someone I haven't met before, or meeting for the first time. And so that is just really important to take in, is like your weirdness is actually normal for someone else, and they can connect with that and relate to that.
Hmm. And so what's the next part? You said that was the first part. So what's the next
Yeah.
part to the VTW method?
Yeah. So from there, we move into then a breath work. So it's a simple, the earth breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth. You're doing 12 of those reps. So it's just 12 inhale, 12 exhale, and you can use your hand to move up and move down. And then you can do 12 moving out for energy and then moving in. And so what this is doing is, breathing is so important with speaking. Some people forget that. It's like you're sometimes feeling like you're trying to catch your breath as you're trying to talk. And what breathing allows for us is a moment to be present, what we talked about,
Hmm.
and also to be able to really feel comfortable expressing our voice at different levels. So that could be when it comes to pitch, being able to go high to low, to being able to focus in on our tonality, if it's how we're expressing our emotions. So when we're sad, we actually feel that, rather than just have a smile and we're saying something that is sad, to then being happy and joyful and just connecting with that. And I always, I do share this, is that I believe, we are the conductors of our voice, and to realize that it is a wide, expansive um, in essence, clay that we can mold into what we want it to be. And that can be difficult for a lot of people for it to click initially, is that, oh, I can shift and change what my voice is to me. And sometimes that's just allowing yourself to get out of the way and just feel comfortable with who you are and expressing that. And so with breathing, that allows us to get present, to feel comfortable in the moment and being able to express our words. So that's the other part. And then the final aspect of this is movement, being able to create some sort of movement. So for me, that looks like doing lip singing to songs. That's a way to move because you have a lot of energy that starts to build. And so what happens is you want to release that in some way. So for me, that's lip singing to like Freddie Mercury. And I'm just like going off on it when it comes to We Are the Champion. It could be a song, or it could be dance for others. It could be all of a sudden doing some push ups, doing like 12, a set of 12 push-ups. That opens up for your own creativity, but it's like doing 2 minutes of something and just go for it. And so ultimately it's just trying to make it compact in less than 10 minutes is the goal. But what it does is it's a great way to start the day. It's a great way to potentially end the day. It's a great way when you have something big that's about to happen, it becomes an anchor for you of safety to be able to reconnect with your genuine energy and express that out into the world.
Mm, I like that. And something you mentioned with the breath working as you start pushing out and then bringing back in and expanding and contracting kind of thing. With that, too, to me, that helps you with being expressive and really getting a movement where you're starting to use your hands. And as you're thinking of breathing, and of course, in this case, you talked about it too, about breathing out and you moved your hands out. That's an important thing when we go up to speak or just have a conversation rather than sitting still like a robot and just having a conversation. You talk about, hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to go out that way, and you kind of point your hand or whatever, or show of hands. That's another thing. But using your what you have, your hands, your arms, your body to express the words that you're also saying, which goes back to what we talked about way at the beginning about the auditory versus visual versus I can't think of it, the one that feels things. But
Yeah, kinesthetic for that one. Yeah.
kinesthetic, yeah, and that shows that you're getting the auditory, but also a visual, which helps people to be able to learn and understand what you're saying, which is an important thing. And of course, that breath work there, and something that I also thought about was the pauses. If you can learn to breathe, it creates a pause, and pauses can be very powerful, especially when you put them in the right spots. Especially after a strong statement, if you want people to think on that, take a pause real quick. Or as you start doing this breath work as well, and may not be able to hear it when I do it in the mic, but especially if you're doing like a breathing exercise, that's something that you do. Like, let's breathe. Like you're gonna breathe really like hard into the mic, but when you're not used to that, you might like you just like a little sniffle, like breathe. It's like that wasn't really a good solid strong breath. And so it helps you get used to doing those things like that and really animating yourself. So I think that's just the great method that you use there to really help your clients be able to get through that, or to be able to get better at expressing themselves in their way and building up their own personal energy.
Yeah, well, and a key to realize as you're going through, if it's the breathwork portion, voice exercises, and or movement, or even again, the whole point of all of that is to support you in feeling comfortable and confident to go up and express who you are on stage. In that genuine energy, just feeling like, all right, I'm me. Is to make it as natural as possible.
Hmm.
That's really important. Is like the goal is to make it feel effortless for you. It's not to feel super intense and like a lot of energy when you're having to step up on stage. That's how it can feel starting off, and the nerves are going to stay there, like potentially for you. And I mean, even on the highest of levels, some still feel nervous. And so I think that's important because it shows that you care and you want to do a great job. But the key is being able to, as we're going through this and like taking that time to really be able to connect and express who we are, if we don't have that moment to just, again, go back to the pause, if we can't have that moment to just pause and to just breathe and just to feel that level of comfort and be able to feel present, then we're not being able to feel that safety to express who we are out there.
Hmm. Hmm. And so there's somebody that's probably skeptical about this method, or maybe there's something that's holding them back. If there's something that you could say, maybe to get them over that edge, what's something that you would share to help them get over that edge and at least give this method an attempt?
Yeah, it's just to try it. I mean, again, it's one of those things where if it's not working right now for you, this might help. This might be an option. And the key is to keep. If this is not it, then that's okay. Because I always think that there's like 1,000 ways to get to the end destination, and that's really important for people to realize. There's no one right way for everything. And
Mm.
so if you've been trying stuff out and you're struggling right now and you're like, man, like I could really try to get a little bit more confident, a little bit more comfortable when it comes to expressing my words out into the world, or on stage or in conversation, one-on-one, give this a try it out. If it works, great, awesome, I'm pumped for you. You're similar to me with navigating this. If not, totally okay too. Hopefully you'll find what it is. The key is to just not stop searching. That's what I believe in is the importance of growth and being able to make sure that you're going out there and actually taking the time to find what can help you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So y'all definitely go try out that VTW method and reach out to Robert David if he can help you out with that. And before we go into the last question, since I already said reach out to you, tell us
Yeah.
where we can reach out to you.
Yeah. So the best, so Instagram is best for me. It's at RD Weeks 50. LinkedIn also Robert David Weeks, and then also website robertdavidweeks.com.
And that's weeks, like weeks of the
Oh, yeah.
year.
Weeks, months, days. That's so important. Yeah. WEEKS.
Yeah.
And then please, yeah, if especially listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, please let me know like what insight you resonate with, and share that. Definitely send me a message. I'd love to connect.
Awesome. And so let's go into the last question now. So again, make sure that y'all connect with Robert David on all those platforms. He's doing some really cool stuff. Been enjoying seeing what he's got out there. But the last question I have for you is, if you could only share one message for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
Yes. Okay. So for me, it would be being genuine is worth it. And what I want to add onto that is a quote. This is a quote I share. It's by Lisa Nichols, and it states that communication is the distance between you and everything you want. And I believe that by being genuine, you are on that path of being able to communicate out there into the world for everything that you want.
Hmm. And I kind of ask, I mean, that quote, that's awesome. I love that quote there. But why genuine? Is there's something that maybe came up in your life? I feel like maybe there's a little something deeper about why you picked that genuineness being your message.
Yeah, well, so for me, I felt my entire life that I wasn't genuine. I was trying to be
Mm,
someone I was not, or felt expectations, like felt others had expectations for me. And if that's family, like my dad taught me in high school, and so I felt like I had to be a certain way without him saying anything. It wasn't on him. It was that I have two older brothers, and they were star athletes at my high school, middle school, and then I'm coming in and having to fill those shoes, and they're a few years older than me. And so it's sometimes these assumptions we make of we have to be a certain way or act a certain way, and that could be based off of teachers that told us something. That could be friends saying that's stupid or weird of what you're doing. That feels natural, or just if it's a boss or clients or customers. Always we've gotten that input that can come in, and so for me, it's helping others to realize that really the key is figuring out what feels right for you and what feels in alignment for you. And I have struggled through that journey. I've come to a place where I feel on solid footing with it. And now it's a moment of practicing that for the rest of my life because it'll have ebbs and flows. But it's so important because what happens is we feel the heaviness that's been on our shoulders. We realize how much we've been carrying and we're able to let it go. And the
mm,
difference is so worth it. From my own experience, and I know from others that have gone on that path, and it's a hard ass path to go on. And it's one that is very scary, very fearful. And there's a lot that can come up, and many people will go the other way, but also many people will stay the course. And so it's important to surround yourself with others that are in that want to continue to express who they are, discover who they are, and be able to be willing to grow in that journey too. it's so important and it makes such a big difference. So that's why being genuine, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And genuineness is a tough thing to do when you don't really know yourself. When you don't know yourself, who you want to be, who you are, and everything, it's definitely a lot harder to be genuine. But when you can figure out and you know who you are, you definitely can be more genuine. And it really comes down to being truly honest with everything. And that is a tough thing as well, especially in our society today. It's all about sugarcoating things, not telling the hard truths that are out there sometimes. It's about just being, well, let's tiptoe around these certain subjects and not bring them up or not talk about them at all, especially with my faith background. That's a lot of what happens too, is just, oh, well, we don't talk about that. Like we don't talk about sexual immorality, or we don't talk about all these little things like that. And well, maybe not little things, but we don't talk about these certain things. But then you end up learning that from somebody in the world, or somebody that you really shouldn't be learning that from. And so we need to make sure that we are genuine and learn ourselves first. I do like that message a lot. So,
It's yeah, so powerful, and it goes back to just the importance of the time, giving yourself the time to do that, and to be honest, brutally honest is such an important vehicle or method to get to that point. And it's one of the scariest things that you can do, but one of the most worthwhile things you can do for yourself.
yeah, totally agree there. So everybody go take a moment, follow Robert David on social media, and make sure that you continue to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel so you can continue to see amazing guests like Robert David. But Robert David, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing some great tactical information and wisdom from inside your brain, and helping us learn to be present and take a moment to breathe.
Super appreciate getting the opportunity. It was so much fun, epic fun.